One, and we're live. It's BetaSaaSers Meeting. It's a Tuesday, and Sam and Richard and Paul and Rose are here. I'm gonna hit the old screen share button and come into my desktop one. And yes, I don't think we have an extensive agenda today. I guess there's a couple of things. Well, I had thought, right, there is no agenda thing. One thing I've been thinking about is about how it would be nice if we had nicely written user stories for what different people wanted, because that's something that we often say, that we're teaching about, and so if we had that,
right,
that would be handy. I guess as I posted into BetaSaaSers, I noted that there was more stuff from Philip Johnson, but I forwarded that to the mailing list. I mean, that's Philip in Hawaii who's got this interesting approach to athletic software engineering that
right.
I think has a lot going for it, but no requirements to discuss that necessarily. And then what was the other thing? The other thing I was thinking about was mentioning this Slack IM framework that a lot of us are using. But should we just first see if there is anything that Richard or Rose would like to add to the agenda? Anything you'd like to chat about today?
Yeah, I mean, mostly just anything going on with the current MOOC.
Yeah.
Be of interest. That would, that's been like the news. That was the news last time.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I can give you more MOOC updates. Definitely, easily done. Rose.
Just again, exactly what Richard said. And are there going to be any more walkthroughs, pair programming, etc.?
Yeah. Well, on that note, I can say the answer is yes. Although they're happening, like somewhat randomly. Although perhaps we can make them more consistent. So, yes, what's going on? Right. Well, yeah. So I actually did do a complete walkthrough of Homework 3, and I think I do even have a video of that I could give you. So we released Homework 3, which is the Cucumber one, last week. Let me go and grab that.
When you say a walkthrough, you're talking about the one that would be actually working through and solving the problem, like from beginning to end?
Yes. Yes, indeed.
So in theory, one that would not be sort of publicly available.
Right.
Yes, that's right. And so, oh, sorry, that's a video of me. Right. I'm just getting you the link. But anyway, I'll put this link in. I'll put it in there. But so
I have one for 3 also.
Yeah.
And I have one for 4 that's virtually complete. But I started kind of getting a little critical about it. So at some point I may want to confer with someone else about finishing it, the very kind of last bit of it.
Sure.
But I mean, other than that, it's done. And I mean, the way I do my walkthroughs, which is different from the way you do yours, because yours are videos.
Right.
I actually show everything that you type and then everything that you see, and so that if someone's just getting up to speed and isn't familiar, they could sort of know when they're getting off track.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yes, it does.
And I have little notes and references throughout. So I mean, it's different. It's just
sure.
It's not. I mean, I'm not trying to say mine is better, because it's not. It's different.
Sure. Yes. Well, I think there's relative pros and cons. I mean, you've done great text-based walkthroughs, and I think many students prefer text-based walkthroughs because they can easily copy and paste from the thing and avoid any higher level thought if they can. I mean, well, sorry, that's being
right. But again, the reason I wrote them was for any instructors that are just starting and aren't all the way on board yet.
I think it's very valuable to have the written ones, and I think they're also more work intensive in terms of creating them. So it's fantastic that you've done them. I mentioned this Homework 3 thing more, not to say, oh yes, we need more like this. What I was doing last week, we released Homework 3, and what we've been doing is, so this is more part of the MOOC update, is going, and we've been working through, well, to go back, because I think we haven't seen you for a couple of weeks, Rose, we have...
Yeah, I was really sick last week. I'm sorry.
No need to apologize.
I was sick 2 weeks in a row. It was horrible.
Yeah, that sucks. But so what we have done now is we have, so you, way back when, sent us some pull requests to, which were on the skeleton of the homework too, which is the Rails intro thing. And so they're now pulled in, although what I've also done is that I'm going through the homeworks and I'm making all of them have, rather than zip files that they download, I'm making public repositories that contain the skeleton.
Oh, that's nice. So they get a little more practice with Git?
Yes, a little more practice with Git, and also it means that students themselves can send pull requests onto the thing saying, like, you know, look, so we've got here pull requests from people saying, you know, this would be handy. And I think that's just...
Oh, yeah, the default Git ignore.
Right. Yeah. So having these kinds of things are, you know, I think it's just, you know, Armando moved away from this model and to the zip file download, you know, back last fall, and just coping with the overhead of maintaining that. And since I'm now, you know, it's my responsibility to, like, you know, maintain these things, I'm pushing it back this way in order to try and better manage the maintenance burden. So in future, for example, Rose, if you discovered other issues with one of these skeletons, then you could put the pull request directly
right there.
Into that.
Sounds great.
Yeah. So as well as the Rails intro one, we've got the BDD Cucumber one. Yes, and that README actually needs fixing. But yeah, I was away over the weekend, and so I wasn't able to. So what I had done was, so this, I think, well, I'll back up. What you'll find now is that this skeleton here, this has the things, for example, that you specifically added, if you remember, Rose.
Yeah.
So that to lock it to Ruby 193, and in fact, I've locked this up to the very latest version of Rails with security fix.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
other things, and it has, it also has. Anyway, all of those bits and pieces relates to mass assignment and, you know, for deployment to Heroku and so on. So, you know, I'm kind of like pleased to be able to report progress in that regard. Although, of course, you know, by the time it runs around to the full courses, I'm sure Heroku will have done something different and thrown us some other kind of curveball. But so, you know, I think the best that I can do is to try and get the MOOC to start early enough so that we encounter any new issues in the MOOC before you guys encounter them in the Spox. But,
absolutely great idea.
Yeah, but we'll see. So this one. So then I've also added those updates to this BDD Cucumber one. So this BDD Cucumber, which now also, you know, has the same updates. The gem file is upgraded. I've also gone through and added what is it? Forgotten now. The same things. Although like, so for example, these things like this fix for Heroku deploy is not so relevant for this homework because the students are not required to deploy this to Heroku, and in fact all they do is they submit a tar of the features directory for this for this homework. But so now he said, finally dragging himself back to the reason why I ended up recording a complete walkthrough of homework 3 last Thursday was because I wanted to check that with the changes, you know, however
good idea,
that the entire homework was still completable. And that's I may be overly cautious in this regard, but you know, that's partly why I was holding off pulling in those changes. Of course, what we really want is, rather than having to do a complete manual walkthrough of each of these things, is we want you know, proper testing, continuous integration. What I've unfortunately done as a side effect of this is I've pulled this out of the private homework repo, and so as it stands, like another reason why I haven't immediately pulled in these. These look like two very sensible pull requests from students that I should probably pull in. I mean, it seems like the dot get ignore thing. That just seems. I should just pull it.
Real pain if you don't put that in place.
Yeah, I mean that just seems like. I mean, what I with that one, it seems extremely unlikely that would have any negative impacts. But I guess with all of these things, like what I guess I would like to do before pulling it in is I'd like to have the continuous integration in there that would check all aspects of the homework.
Sure.
But I think go on.
Paul was really helpful with putting that get ignore together. Paul, you there?
Paul's.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Around.
Yeah. I mean that was great.
Did you do a get ignore file at some point, Paul?
I think we did.
You helped me put one together.
Right? Yeah, at one time.
Yeah. Yeah, so they'll definitely have a look over this one, Paul, and see if there's anything that you think that might be added. But what I'd love to do is now, at least, well, I guess that was the bigger picture, is that although Paul did fantastic work covering lots of the various homeworks, I think it's still the case, Paul, that for the Rails intro homework that involves deployment to Heroku, we don't really have any good CI mechanism that actually tests the underlying skeleton. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
No?
I don't know if we had that combination, but...
Yeah, no, I think when you put in like loads of work doing a variation on it where it would receive the archive and it would then test the archive.
Gotcha.
And so for that one...
Yeah, so actually get the actual Heroku. Right,
whereas the original testing thing would just test that the specs ran against a version of the, Armando's deployed Heroku instance. So, it wasn't in principle testing. So, I mean, there's an interesting question here about what kind of CI one would... I mean, it almost... CI for this repository would either need to deploy to Heroku and check that the correct thing was, and then run the specs on it, or it would, need to interact with the archive grader, which is another. So I don't know that we necessarily want to rush into doing anything there. I'm just sort of thinking through the different things that we can do. Where do we leave? Go on, Rose.
If I could add something, at one point this semester, and this sort of gets a little bit into homework 4, I'd really like to do some intensive work on RSpec, because that seemed to cause a lot of problems.
Yes, you mean intensive work as in just spend a lot of time practicing RSpec? Yes. Sure. Well, so leading on from that, I mean, so I ended up doing this review, a complete review of homework 3 on Thursday last week, and so I'll be doing the same again this coming Thursday around this sort of time and perhaps earlier. In order, I'll be doing, I think, a complete review of homework 4, because what I'll be trying to do is make sure that we've taken, I'll be trying to pull in all the changes to upgrading all to the latest versions and making sure that homework 4 works precisely as we believe it should do, if you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah. So Thursday? What time? So
Thursday, probably at, an hour and 20 minutes before now, which is 4 p.m. UTC +1 my time. But, I mean, that's, I guess, I hesitate to give you an absolute precise thing.
But an hour before now your time.
Yeah, so that sort of thing.
It should be 11 my time.
Right. What's your time now?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's a little afternoon.
Yeah. So like
we started at
around 11 your time. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just looking through here. Yeah. So I think I pulled in the. This is the one, updates BDD Cucumber for Spring 2004 MOOC. So this one, this is like. Right. So this is the thing that so effectively I pulled in all of these changes.
Right.
Accessible thing and this, but I did them into the new skeleton.
Right.
Instead,
and a different version of Rails. or a different.
But I pulled it up because 3.2.18 has come out since then. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of merge it just as a, I think it's good. Part I want to make sure that your effort is going noticed, and so on and so forth. Anyway, but so what I will be wanting to do on Thursday is make sure that the various ones here that are related to the BDD TDD cycle are done, and gradually, as I've said to Paul before, I am strapped to the great wheel of MOOC, and the great wheel of MOOC continues to turn, and I just will be forced through each of the remaining homeworks as the.
So with
go on.
I was going to say with homework 4, there's also the on RAG. There is the HW4 repo as well to watch out for.
Right.
Yes. Because it's got to be in sync, basically.
Okay. Yeah, that's the one. That's right? Is there? Okay.
HW4 greater stuff. HW4 rotten potatoes.
Right. Okay, and that's relying upon. Okay. Well,
it's some runtime dependency with.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think hoping I'm hoping I'm going to see a lot more of you in the future, Paul, in terms of Tuesday.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you want to set anything up, definitely I can do that, or I'll be around too.
Well, yeah. As I say, I think my plan would be. I've got local support client meeting on Thursday morning, and then Thursday afternoon will basically be all about this for me.
Great.
My Thursday afternoon. So that's what you guys Thursday morning. But so that was a not unreasonable route around. Can I now find that? Okay, here it is. Yeah. Okay. So. Yeah, and so we're actually getting to the end of the 169 Part 1 MOOC, and the Oracle of Bacon has been moved into the 169 Part 2, so that will be coming up. There'll be kind of like a little week, not really a hiatus. Yeah, pretty much the following week it'll be Oracle of Bacon, and then, I'll be hitting all of the other homeworks, the legacy homework and everything, basically going through till the end of the summer. If, just following on from Rose was mentioning an interest in RSpec, I do have this pair programming what's it called organization on GitHub, and I have a number of pairing RSpec related exercises. I've just created here. This is a RSpec pairing exercise that specifically walks through and gets people to change driver navigator roles. So it's step by step building a new RSpec project, but getting a pair to do it. In alternate turns, switching from driver to navigator, and so on, and so forth.
That's terrific.
I thought I'd also quickly show you. So I'm going into this Makers Academy, which is a coding bootcamp on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And this is now what I'm doing is I'm pairing with I'm doing scaffolded pairing sessions with these students, and it's all about RSpec at the moment, and all of the RSpec repos and videos, in some cases videos of the sessions. Anyway, so you can often see what I'm doing on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays as a function of looking at that. But anyway, but yeah, to go back to here, yes. So that's the MOOC. The MOOC continues. I think that's all the MOOC updates. I was very pleasantly surprised coming back from over the weekend to discover that things were not on fire, and it seems to be control. So we did have last Thursday, though, and the reason I was particularly pleased about that because last Thursday the kind of graders went down. Last Thursday was the homework deadline for homework 1, the Ruby Calisthenics, and the grader went down, and it might have been due to an interaction with the Spork system that has to be running for the homework 3, and that was a bit of a difficult evening on Thursday evening. And I seemed to resolve it by killing Spork and restarting the grader several times. It just the Ruby processes that were being created by the for the purposes of grading were not dying, and so that was kind of challenging. It seems to be under control now. I think we have to watch out for this Thursday where we've got homework 2 deadline coming through. It feels like we need monitoring on the EC2 system to tell us when the load on the system is much too high. I'm kind of looking at setting something up for that.
The stuff that comes with Amazon actually does quite a bit, and it's nice because it's already set up with your information for emailing you.
Yeah.
But also, I was looking at Monet.
Oh yeah.
It seems to be kind of like a standard solution people use for
Hmm.
uh, not only monitoring processes but restarting them
Okay.
and keeping like a suite of different app servers and web servers all restarting a certain number of times and
Okay.
logging and stuff.
Yeah, I mean I think it's the kind of thing I would definitely like to look at together at some point. I
Cool.
was just looking at here. This is setting up, trying to get a. This is the production grader,
Right.
and uh,
Unfortunately, none of them say, exactly what you'd want because they're not familiar with your situation where
no,
you're
but I think if
spawning.
the CPU utilization is above this, I was just trying to like at least experimenting with it. But if the CPU utilization is above 95%, for example,
Right, for
for
5 minutes. Yeah.
yeah, but that would be well, I'm gonna put it at like 90%. Then that would be a good time to send me an email, probably.
They
Anyway,
also have memory and stuff, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't. I think I would need. I mean,
I think they may even roll log files.
yeah, yeah. It's the kind of thing. I think we'll need to complete exploring. I mean, actually, this brings me to kind of the topic here, which was the user stories for MOOCs and SPOCs, which is that there's a lot of time that could be spent on the grader trying to assess. We just don't, we've been trying to wrap it in lots more integration tests, but we don't have like performance tests. We don't really have a mechanism for placing it under load and seeing how the changes that we've made, affect its performance. I mean, maybe the thing that happened on Thursday was a freak, but yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of different. I could imagine basically spending a full-time job, exploring the entire thing, which I don't have so much spare time for. Anyway, we'll certainly talk about that more on next Thursday.
Okay.
But what I think is interesting is that we have put ourselves in this situation partly because of this idea, oh right, that we need an external grader. I mean, I've been saying to him, I think I'm on the cusp of convincing Armando that the full specs should be in these, like, so rather than just, so we've also got in here. Oh, one thing, Paul, if like, no, that's the wrong one. Oh, okay. Like, if you've got a spare moment, just going through and adjusting this the README here so that it matches what we've got in the MOOC at the moment would be very handy.
Matching the MOOC. And then what is the MOOC is HTML, right?
Yeah, yeah. So it's just, I think with this one, it's just a question of, I mean, you could even be doing it through here. Yeah, rather than just going in here and so like the thing is that I don't know what it's this problem.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So anyway,
Sounds
actually, if you could just go through and delete the divs, I think it'll work.
do.
Yeah. But so what I was gonna just show people. Oh, where am I going? SaaS book. Yeah, we've got Ruby calisthenics. So this has the skeleton specs. It's got the skeleton code and the skeleton specs in it. And I think I'm at the cusp of convincing Armando that the full specs should be in there. I don't think that there is significant advantage for concealing from the students what the full spec that they're going to be graded against is. In that, I think Armando was saying, we want to make sure that they don't use the grader as a kind of crutch
to drive their development.
Right. And I was saying, well, yeah, if they had the full specs locally, right, they wouldn't be using the grader as we wouldn't overload the grader. Like, if the only way that they can get, certainty about whether their system is working or not is by hitting the grader, then that forces them to use the grader more than, it makes our...
It's exactly.
Right.
And I don't see that it would necessarily be a bad thing until they really get the hang of it to see what the spec checks for. I mean, to get them thinking about, well, why is this in the spec, and how should I formulate mine?
Yeah, I think so. And I think Armando's coming around to that way of thinking. I mean, at the risk of reiterating, I think the suggestion might have been, and I think in some cases, and I was saying this to somebody the other day, I think I was saying something pretty, is like if in a machine learning course where you've got like this validation set and the training set and the test set and so on, it's important, you know, not to make all of the tests available, because you're trying to see, you know, based on what the person did, how well it generalized. And so, you know, can hold some testing data back is a critical thing to do. Whereas in a work environment, it would never be the case that the specs were.
Yeah, it's the opposite.
Right, and in fact, what we don't want is we don't want students to over-engineer their code so that they pass specs that they haven't thought of. Right, we want them to do, you know, that they need to be writing code in a way that they're that seems to be encouraging actually about practice. But anyway.
Right. I would agree with that.
So yes, Rose agrees. Yay.
Not that matters much.
Oh yeah, it matters to me. External.
By the way, Sam.
Go on.
I mean, this is a total aside, but my youngest, his girlfriend is currently in your town.
Oh, there you go. Right.
And yeah, their class is visiting London, all the wonderful literary places and natural history places.
Great.
And I guess they're going to have their graduation right somewhere there. I don't know.
Well,
somewhere where she's going to get to file past Darwin. That was the big excitement.
Fantastic. Well, you'll just have to apologize to them for me for the weather. You know.
I don't think she cares.
Oh, good.
I don't think
that's the best way to be.
cares.
If you're in the UK, that's the best way to be. You don't need
to
not care about the weather.
Right as rain, right?
Indeed.
Rain.
Good stuff. Just going on from so I think what I'd also like to do is I'd love to have, you know, rather than having a grader running in the cloud that we have to maintain, I'd rather that students were able to run their grades, you know, run their own grader locally, and then just, you know, it would report the things back. And I think that actually, I'll link up the two. I think the Philip Johnson thing, you know, if people want to discuss that at some other point, we can do that. I think I'm running out of time to look at it today. You guys can hang around and chat about it after me.
Is that similar to what they do here, the hackathons?
No,
Anyone familiar with that?
Well, I mean, Philip's this whole athletic thing was just this idea of you should be doing the same kind of problem over and over again, and rather than it being like constantly being exposed to new problems, you should treat it as like training for an event where you repeatedly do the same coding activity, but you try and reduce the amount of time that it takes you to complete that individual, you know, thing. But
it sounds like training for a hackathon.
yeah, I think it is. I think it is partly motivated by that.
Right.
I actually thought Philip had done some big blog posts on that before. This latest thing is him talking about the use of a framework. I mean, he has his entire course in GitHub, and I'm also like the people I'm working with at this coding bootcamp in London. They also have their entire course in GitHub. And to be honest, I think, you know, I would if there was something that we could work out so that, you know, the entire edX course were in GitHub, I would be very, very pleased. But that's another story. But at least trying to loop up and connect the latest things. I don't know if Luciano is here, and I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add to the agenda, Luciano. Yeah. But just to wrap up my things before I've got to go off, was that so we are now using for a number of different organizations, I'm using this Slack thing. You're of course all familiar with the BetaSaaSers text chat and various, you know, things. We've basically ended up getting the Agile Ventures group and so on, getting completely sick of lag on Skype. We're migrating over to this system called Slack, which you may or may not have heard of, and I think it is superior to Skype. And I wonder if we could create a BetaSaaSers channel here. If you were interested in trying this out.
That's good. What's the lag issue?
The lag issue with Skype is that you can roll. What's the word? Basically, that sometimes the message will not appear promptly.
Okay. For tech. Okay.
Yes, and yeah. I mean, I'll invite you guys in here, and you'll see if you like it or not. I mean, you don't have to use it. It's just but I mentioned that partly because as a result of inviting lots of people in, we've got all the TAs in here. I had a big discussion with Armando, who was also pulled in here, this is when the graders were,
Okay.
under a lot of stress. One of the advantages of Slack over Skype is that you can see you can see the full history, even if you join late. So you could look back and see Armando and I talking about these things. But the particular thing that came up here, which is prompting my MOOCs box user stories, is he was saying that the importance of having the graders in the cloud is for verification, that people really have done the homework. Like, I guess and not just for the MOOC, but for Berkeley or whatever. And the concern is that if you've got the grader running on the student's machine, that they can kind of
sell each other a client to.
Say again, Paul?
They can sell each other a client that just posts 100%.
Right, exactly. They can kind of. It's. Although, I was going to say, like, surely they can just sell each other the homeworks, right? And the fact that they're submitting the homework and it's being graded on the server side seems to me is no more of a guarantee that they've done the homework than if it was, the grader was actually running on their own machine. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think what I would love to get is kind of user stories which rather than it all being in this sort of amorphous framework of, like we need this for that and this and another, and obviously I've got strong opinions and Mona's got strong opinions about, things like the specs and the graders and this and another. It would be nice, I don't think I have time to do it now, but it would be nice to come up with user stories about what the key needs of, the students and the different Spock people, the BetaSaaSers and the organizations such as Berkeley and different universities involved would be. Do you know what I mean? So that we could kind of make everything be coherent to fit the different customer needs.
It makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
I like your solution, Sam, that you have them pair program and videotape it.
Yeah. Right. Which is actually what I've done. I'm doing that in the MOOC. It would be. We need a little bit more support for that. But yes, cool. But Luciano, yes, Luciano, you are unmuted. Do you want to try talking? You had a comment about the RSpec related stuff. Please do.
Yeah. I was listening to the comments about RSpec, and well, the problem is that it's a key component of the course. I feel that I also feel that we need more exercises about this. And I wanted to comment about what I did here locally. First of all, I started with my students very early in the course. What I did, I found some exercises in Stanford University, some Ruby calisthenics locally. And what I did is that I grabbed the problem statements and I wrote the RSpec, and I was distributing my RSpec specifications to my students to let them start working with this, even before they started working with the material provided in the Spock.
Right.
This is what I did first, and also I think it is for the last homework in the Spock, in the first part.
In the first part, yeah.
Yeah, what I did is I started with a dummy, very basic Rails application. I used the scaffolding feature. I created only one controller with all the elements. I didn't create I didn't generate all the test stuff. And what I did is I showed them how to place the configuration lines for the coverage tool, because what I noticed is that if they put those lines in another place, they get immediately the 100% coverage, even if they haven't added any test. So with them, I showed them where to put the configuration lines, and then with this scaffolded code, I started trying to show them how to write the RSpec specifications to increase the coverage, and that's what we did in our local lecture.
Yes.
Just
Well,
yeah.
That sounds good. And I think that there are a number of problems with that homework, as you mentioned, in ways that you can get, grades without doing the intended thing. I was going to say on that note, in terms of students having more experience of RSpec, I mean, if it's more experience of Ruby, I mean, I try and get everybody to do the Code Academy Ruby track. If you've got a good thing from Stanford that we haven't seen, Luciano, then a link to those Ruby calisthenics from Stanford, we'd love to see that. I think the key thing that I would say, what I end up saying, I think is the missing manual for the course, and I think the thing that basically I think allowed me to understand everything and have everything make sense is the RSpec book itself, which I don't know if you're all familiar with. But
yes, and the problem is the book is outdated. It refers to very old stuff. What I was using myself, I found another interesting book. It's called Everyday Rails Testing with RSpec.
Okay.
And it is really nice.
Now,
I've been looking for a book. That's great news.
Yeah, no, it's a really nice book. It only covers RSpec.
Because the other book does a lot of other things, and it's not very focused, and it's very outdated.
You mean the RSpec book?
Yes.
Yeah. To be honest, I'm a little surprised in that I find the RSpec book to be, it still all works. I mean, if it's the problem is using should instead of expect, personally, I prefer the should syntax. So, I think saying that it's dated, I mean, clearly books in the technical field become dated quickly, although I would say in terms of trying to explain the use of RSpec and Cucumber and what it's all about, right? I mean, I went through this book last year, and all of the code examples worked, and I just thought that this was a fantastic book, and I continue to recommend it to all of my students, in the MOOC and in the boot camp here and everything, as just a great way of understanding what like what the whole RSpec Cucumber thing is about. I don't know.
Yeah,
it is good for
totally
context.
agree with you. I agree with you, Sam. It's a great book when it comes to understand the BDD TDD cycle, because it's really nice. The book starts with Cucumber, and it stops at the right place. Then it switches to RSpec, and this is nice.
Yeah.
This is nice. I agree with you. The problem is that the matchers, it uses WebRat instead of Capybara.
Right.
And that's a problem. That's a problem. I'm using this book, but I decided not to recommend the book to the students because they are always complaining, it doesn't work in my computer. So
it's not a good book for use with describing like what you do with Rails. And I think, actually, one of the advantages I think of it is that it doesn't have any, for the majority of the first, 2/3 of it, it's not about Rails. And I think a lot of the students that we find in the MOOC seem to think that RSpec only works with Rails. They don't realize that you can use it independently of Rails, to drive the creation of things. But yes, so no, a good up-to-date RSpec, the best practices for RSpec with Rails. That's a great addition. I've put a link to the book that you suggested.
The first one is the link.
I was just going to say, I have to amend what I said. It might have been sounding too harsh. I agree with what Luciano was saying in that it's a great introduction to the whole context of BDD, TDD testing. But, I reached a point where I needed something to focus on RSpec, and specifically RSpec and Rails, and it doesn't do that. So if he's got a book that does that, that's very exciting.
Well, that's it. We've got the link in there. Yeah, sorry, Luciano, what were you saying?
The first link is to the to the Stanford web page with the.
Okay. Yes. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And the other one is the title of the book and the author.
Yes. Can you see? I've got the link to that book is
Yeah.
already in the notes here. I think I've got the correct one. It's this. This is the book that you're referring to. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I've got the right one. Great.
Okay. And as I was saying, I wrote the RSpec. Probably, if you're interested, I can also share my RSpec. You have to know those were my very first RSpec specifications. So probably I have to review what I wrote.
Sure, no problem at all.
Yeah, yeah, but probably next week I will share with you these exercises.
Lovely.
And that probably could be one approach, probably to increase the to add some other exercises that we could use locally.
Sure. Excellent. Great. Well, I've really got to go. Do feel free to carry on hanging out. Yeah. Does anybody else got any other? Shall I leave the broadcast running, or just I'll switch it off now?
I actually have to go to work, unfortunately.
Damn, I know, it's so annoying.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, we'll wrap it up there.